Hey, everybody. Um, so I wanted to just talk about the times that we're living in and the antidote to all that we're experiencing. So, in terms of esoteric predictions and all these sort of things, what we're at right now is the kind of the crux of a transformation. And we're moving into what you could say is a kind of a new game from next year and the year after. And that will just be a game where the we will be much more connected to our feelings rather than the external reality. So not to get too out there for you, but there are things that are changing us at a cellular level. And if we're open to those changes, if we don't resist those changes, and if we can kind of go with our intuition rather than the programming and conditioning that has been installed in us, we're going to be fine in the future. We're really going to be fine, um, because we're going to be able to detach from the material reality around us and connect to something that is much purer and way more powerful. This is really kind of we're coming into what you call heart energy, just an energy where we begin to realize we have the insight that we are all deeply interconnected. There's an inseparable element to this human reality, and by remaining in our heart, by remaining loving, we never have to be afraid. So, so what I wanted to talk about, before I go into too much future speculation, is I really want to talk about like the antidote to the experience that is right now. So the chaos that we're experiencing, the falling apart of so many structures, this sort of the unveiling. I think a lot of people had a kind of an unveiling experience around COVID, where we suddenly realized, hold on, and by unveiling, I just mean we saw things clearer. And the things that we saw was like, hey, this isn't exactly the life that I want. This isn't the system that I want to be a part of. I want to break free. And so many of us made beautiful changes in our lives around that time. If even those changes were just sort of at an energetic level where we didn't see people for a while and we connected more to our inside. I know for me that the legacy of COVID for me is that it just became a time where I really dealt with a lot of my people pleasing because there were no people around for me to please. Um, and I learned about the beauty of boundaries because the government placed boundaries on socializing, and then it meant it was so easy for me to just miss out on things, which is what had been so difficult for me leading up to that. I think I was someone who constantly said yes to social events and then regretted it deeply. Um, but with the enforced lack of socializing during COVID, I I I was kind of laughing. I was very happy. But that's not what I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about today is how to navigate the current energy and the sort of the aggressive transformations that are happening. And there is a lot of anxiety in the air. There is a lot of stress in the air. I think there's something beautiful to be noted here about, and this is where astrology has been a huge help to me because it allows me to sort of understand, okay, there's changes here. Pluto is moving this way, Neptune is stationing direct. So there are things outside that are moving, and this isn't just a personal experience. And also, the Irish language is so useful for this because it talks about, how moods and feelings arrive and land on us. I think in the ancient times, too, from my bare knowledge of ancient times, they would talk about that too. They would talk about how a fury would land, or an anger would land, or a sadness would land. They didn't personalize these moods. They could recognize that the moods were kind of collective. And I think, you know, to a certain extent, so much of our move towards individualization has just made us more isolated, because in the past we would have known, you would have felt, oh, an anger in the air. It wouldn't have just been the anger is in me. We would have realized that our feeling resonated with those around us. So, what I want to talk about is how to move through the feelings of unrest and the feelings of tension and the feelings of anxiety that are all around us at the moment. And what this is really is these are kind of the feelings that you would associate with huge change. These are, you could call it the birth pangs. Something new is being born, but in order for that new thing to be born, something else has to die. And I've spoken about this at length before, this idea that some of the pain we're experiencing is really necessary. It's the pain of new muscles growing in your body. It's the pain of kind of the pain of like grief, the grieving for what you haven't had. And when I say grieving for what you haven't had, I mean, often when we go through personal development, the thing that we encounter before we really get to enjoy the freedom is the grief for the years of imprisonment. I often notice that when I have an insight, it's then accompanied by a lot of sadness, especially when that insight is connected to ways that you've abandoned yourself, or you've played small, or you've forgotten your dreams. So quite often, our change, our growth encounters huge sadness. And then when the sadness passes, there's this beautiful lightness, because you understand, the potential that's now at my fingertips. There's so much ahead of me. There's so much excitement and beauty waiting for me to dive into. So, back to the moment. And what I feel is being asked of us right now is to really go against the impulse of fear. Now, the impulse of fear at a time like this makes us busy. It kind of forces a sort of a quickening. I've noticed it even in myself in the last couple of weeks. A type of like a tightening, a bracing, beginning to kind of work a little bit harder, to push at things a little bit more. I noticed even a little element of hustle coming into me. And all of these things are the old game. These are the old way of doing things. What's being asked of you right now, the way to be, the way to kind of ride these waves of change and drama and chaos in the external world, is to step into that most radical place, which is relaxation. The way to move through everything that's happening to us here is to slow down. At a personal level, I'm just trying to adopt a much more kind of Japanese way of life. I know maybe I've never been to Japan, and I don't have any Japanese friends, so this could be complete glorification of some sort of cinematic Japanese ideal in my head. But what I'm trying to do is just make everything a ceremony. So when I drink my coffee in the morning, I try to only drink my coffee. As I walk somewhere, I try and look at the trees. As I'm lying down at night, I try and kind of just step into this place of gratitude and really just know that the more you can be in this place of presence and gratitude and ultimately just relaxation, then all of the changes that are happening right now, the changes that are happening to you and to all of us are just going to integrate in a very peaceful, gentle way. You will kind of naturally flow through into the new energy, right? You won't be pulled kicking in streets, screaming into the new energy. It will just happen, and um, you'll feel it in your body. You'll go, ah, okay, the changes just happened. Um, and they happened in the most natural way. Much in the same way that, when our bodies are changing, like I can't really speak to the bodies of women, but I know from me, like it was sort of one morning I woke up and there was little wisps of hair on my face, or suddenly, morning I woke up and I noticed I had wrinkles and things like this, or gray hairs. It's just happening naturally. I'm not resisting it. And the internal change will happen naturally if you can just relax. And I feel the way to relax is just to recognize that this is not personal. This is by no means personal. This is a collective change. We are going through a period, a huge upgrade, you might call it. A period where we as humans are being brought to a type of collapse. When we look at external reality, we see a collapse. We see like, okay, all of the structures that we've maybe depended on, that we trusted on, the structures that maybe we gave our power to, God, they look so ridiculous, pathetic now. Whenever I see politicians on TV, I'm just like, who are these people who are still trying to continue on this ghost of, I don't know, politics, and they're trying to sort of, the pompousness of it, that the self-importance of it all, the lack of heart, really the lack of heart, all these geriatric men in suits, what do suits even symbolize, standing in front of these silly little flags. And yeah, before I go into a rant about that, but it's this idea that as all of this becomes more absurd and more ridiculous, that your way of moving through it is to try and just maintain a relaxed, joyous, open heart. That's your work right now. Your work isn't to get into fights with people, to try and convince people. Your work is to just be an example of calm. Yeah, and I want to just leave this message with a couple of quotes from Terence McKenna. Terence McKenna was one of my favorite writers and talkers on this transformative time. The things he saw and predicted and understood have really, really been of huge help to me. And he said, we are going through the eye of the needle. Make sure you leave what you don't need behind. We are going through the eye of a needle. Make sure what you don't need, you leave behind. And that's kind of the essence of what is happening right now. The essence of what is happening is that we are being squeezed. We are being compelled to return to our essence. Our essence is just this poetic, beautiful, powerful soul beneath all the conditioning. And I want to just add another Terence McKenna quote, because this one is also very beautiful and really prescient and speaks to the moment. And it is this: you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms. You are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms. So with that faith, with that truth, relax. Try and relax. Remember, you're a divine being. connect to your divinity, connect to the sweet spots inside your body, connect to slowness. I saw a TikTok reel the other day and it came up on my algorithm. And it was things that incredibly wealthy people do. And one of the things that incredibly wealthy people do is they always act unbothered. Um, and I don't know how particularly true this is, but there was something about that being unbothered. This recognition that, hey, it's okay. I can manage this. In the midst of all of this chaos, I will remain unbothered because I will remember that I come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and I will return to those realms. So, thanks for listening. Take care of yourself, move slowly, stay relaxed, find calm, find nature wherever you possibly can. I personally am waking up much slower these days. I wake up and meditate, and then instead of acting on the kind of the energies and the compulsions to do things, I'll often just take a little moment in the morning to read. Um, um, and in that way, um, I find that things just slow down automatically for me. I'm saying no to a lot of social events, which isn't hard for me, but I'm saying more no these days, and that's also helping. And not traveling so much either. I don't think I'll be leaving my little nest until the end of the year. So yeah, that's it, guys. I'm sure you have your own thoughts and your own ways of moving through that, but I would just stress to relax and remember you are a divine being and everything will come to you and all the resources you need will be there to help you exactly when you need them. So stay in love, stay in your heart, and find peace and relaxation. All right. Love yous and talk soon.